There's a little gap there between downpours. You want to make a run for it? T-Rex, see if we can get out there between the rains. Yeah, it's Monday. How come you're so enthusiastic? Dogs don't care what day it is. How about a cat? Anyone seen a cat around here? Yeah, there goes a cat. 57 degrees. Focus, Tim, focus. At 10 a.m. I've been studying weather for a while. All day yesterday, that icon right there said we were going to have a thunderstorm. Is there any thunder out there? You bet your cumulonimbus there is. But not here. Not in Weymouth. Not right here. But we are surrounded by towering cumulonimbus. Those are the really tall thunderstorm clouds. Donald Peacock in Newmarket, New Hampshire this morning says it was calm with a thunderstorm at about 8 a.m. He's coming down. Captain Peacock and Captain Sean both on the links today. Where was I? The camera just froze and shut off. That's always something, isn't there? So if you look at the national lightning map, you get all those thunderstorms near Florida, Gulf of Mexico, strengthening hurricane. Don't call me Michael. Milton exploding in strength this morning. But if you look at the lightning across the lower 48, the only other lightning is right here in New England. Wow, we have our own thunderstorms. Looks like they're non-severe. And they're tracking off to the east-northeast. And there are going to be a couple of rounds of showers and thunderstorms around here today. And the air still coming from the southeast. It's amazing. We just can't shake this ocean component of wind. And this weather system, this front, believe it or not, is the wettest cold front going by southern New England since way back on August 9th. When the remnant of Debby and a front caused real heavy weather. You saw what happened in northern New England. And in southern New England, we just had a bunch of rain with the remnant front. But it hasn't rained this hard in southern New England with a cold front since the second week of August. And here we are going into the second week of October. That's amazing, almost 2 months. Now, there have been heavy rains, but it was associated with waves on a warm front to our south. So this is actually a cold front, and it's going to change the setup in the atmosphere where the last several weeks we've had a wind coming in off the ocean, and Boston and coastal areas have been some of the coolest spots. Now we're going to have low pressure to our north and an offshore wind, and Boston and coastal areas are going to be the warmest in New England this week and going forward maybe into the weekend. So many moving parts. What do you want to talk about? A little time out to look at a sailboat coming in. Probably headed for port. You can see the sailboats are still out there, a few sailboats, but most of the motorboats have gone for the season. And Yggdrasil is still right there in the water looking good. The boats aren't moving very much. There's very little wind down in the ground right now. I showed you that radar moving a minute ago. Let's look at the radar here closer up. And there are the showers and thunderstorms coming across and moving from southwest to northeast. So this initial batch of rain is going to go offshore with some downpours, and then another random shower or thunderstorm will come through about dinner time or sunset. There's a T-Rex and a cat, a Maine Coon cat licking cat mint seed. So that's, just think of it as his morning coffee. Did a lot of work in the garden yesterday. Look at that, how pretty that is. I like the fall colors here. It's sad. I hate seeing summer go, but then I like fall, and then I hate seeing fall go, but then I like winter, and then I hate seeing winter go, but then I like spring, and so on and so on. So my favorite season is whichever one we're in. So I guess autumn is now my favorite season for the next couple of weeks until it starts snowing. When's it going to start snowing? Well, we've been talking about it for this week for some time. Look at the Boston 5-day. You say, no way, snow in New England. Look at this 5-day forecast today. The showers and a thunderstorm early, and then a break of sun, then another shower or a thunderstorm, temperature only about 60. And then it looks like a lot of sun with an offshore wind, something very different. We're going to have several days in a row of wind from the west, which is best. So right near the coast and at lower elevations, we are going to have a pretty nice week, but it's going to be a different story in northern and western New England. And you can see the dew point going down almost to 40 here by the end of the week. And there'll be instability showers in parts of New England. So what about surf? You've been talking a lot about surf. Well, I want to share this image from Bruce Cowan on Nantucket Island yesterday. He said he had a lot of fun. Shoulder to head high, one after another, 14, 15 second apart swell. That's a long period swell coming from the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And the wind was offshore on the south side of Nantucket. Here we had an onshore wind, so I don't think anybody had near as much fun here on our east-facing shores as you guys that got out there on the south-facing shores from Nantucket to Rhode Island, I'm sure Long Island, and probably a lot of places off to the south. And the swell now, if you look at some of the buoy reports this morning, the swell is running about, 5, 6, 7 feet in the order of 14, 15, 16 second. And the buoy roundup for southern New England shows Stellwagen Bank at 2 feet 3 seconds. That's because there's a chop due to the onshore flow on top of that ground swell. So there's a ground swell and a chop. Not very pretty there on the Cinnamon Rainbows cam at Hampton Beach, is it? So we're going to have to let that swell clean up a little bit. And tomorrow the wind goes offshore, the sun comes out, and yeah, the sun should come up tomorrow. And hopefully we have the swell still coming. I think we still will, but I think, Bruce, you scored it yesterday. Atlantic Ocean. 3 named hurricanes, kind of making history. Those hurricanes, like Kirk, were some of the strongest, the farthest east to form in modern history. Follow Phil Katzbach for that. And so we've got Kirk and Leslie as hurricanes, and now Milton, a rapidly strengthening hurricane. At least it did this morning. Bob Maxon, he got to work in Connecticut this morning. Bob and I worked together in New Hampshire a million years ago. And, well, how many times have I told you not to exaggerate? I've told you a million times not to exaggerate. Hey, Chuck. Chuck Stockdale gave me that one. Anyhow, serious situation, and Bob says that the storm intensified from a Category 1 to a Category 4 while he was working today in his 8-hour shift this morning. Extraordinary pressure down to 940 millibars with winds of Category 4 strength. And it's going to be fluctuating. It's not a huge storm. It's actually only about a 40-mile wide hurricane. Just happens to be more like a 40-mile wide tornado over the water. A look at the wide shot of the satellite imagery from Florida to the hurricane, and it's not just a hurricane causing problems in Florida. Still cleaning up from Helen, and it's been raining for the last 3 or 4 days. Parts of Florida have already had 4 to 5 inches of rain, with some localized 9-inch amounts of rain in Florida, both the west coast and the east coast. And so the ground is saturated. It's already flood warnings in effect, and that's because there's been a front stalled over Florida, and the interaction of a warm core barotropic storm. Yesterday I made a mistake when I said I confused barotropic and baroclinic. Barotropic means purely tropical storm. That's what Milton is now, a purely tropical storm. And then when it goes baroclinic, that means it's going from a warm core to a hybrid to a cold core post-tropical storm that could still have similar ferocity, probably getting bigger, but probably losing some of its wind intensity. But still, it's going to be a major impact on Florida, and it's just horrible that this is happening twice within 4 weeks. And, you know, this is not unprecedented. Here in New England, we had the summers of 38 and 44. Those were one storm summers. But then 54 and 55, we had dual tropical cyclones within weeks of one another here in New England. So it can happen. And so it's not unprecedented, but it's very sad and very unfortunate that that's going to happen there. Taking in what's going on here right now. Those waves caused by gravity, waves in the atmosphere made out of air. And how about the waves of light? Well, actually, they weren't light. You know, there's 2 things that happen on the sun. I've been studying. Solar flare is just a bright light that comes off the sun, and it's electromagnetic, and it reaches Earth in just minutes. And then there's a coronal mass ejection. A coronal mass ejection of the sun is actually plasma, electromagnetic plasma. It's matter, and it takes about 3 or 4 days, or sometimes 5 days, to reach Earth. And it's the coronal mass ejection that causes the waves of light in the sky known as Borealis. Excuse me, Borealis means pole. Aurora
is the name for the northern lights, and if they are over the North Pole, then they're called Borealis. And I'm showing all these different images. Brandon on Cape Cod. Oh my goodness, Cape Cod. That's the second time you've gotten Aurora, Brandon. Thank you for sharing. And I think Jerome in Western New York gets the prize. Jerome saw this thunderstorm over Lake Ontario last evening and the Aurora at the same time. What a show the sky put on. And while we're on shows, Patriots on TV yesterday made it interesting to the very end, but it was really not a very pretty game. And then last night on TV, the 50th Annual American Music Award, it wasn't really an award show, it was just a ceremony of 50 years of hosting the American Music Awards, and so there were no prizes, so there were no speeches. There were just a lot of people grateful for everything that their talent and for being able to share it with us. And when Gladys Knight sang Midnight Train to Georgia there, the same as she did 50 years ago, that was astounding, and it almost brought a tear to my eye. That was yesterday, all the different shows on TV and outdoors. And here in the yard, I went down there for sunset and got a time lapse. But we're not done with the forecast yet. There's a long way to go here, so bear with me. This low pressure system, here's the HRRR and today's rainfall forecast. You see the showers and thunderstorms mostly pushing off, but then a few more try and form late in the day. We may have a thunderstorm coming right over the links at sunset tonight, so that'll be pretty interesting. And that's right here near Boston. And then we do have cyclogenesis. We talked about it last week. There was going to be cyclogenesis this week, much weaker, and not over Long Island, but over eastern Maine. So it makes a huge difference where the low is. If the low was over Long Island, the wind would be coming in from the east, and this would be a beast. But this low is going to the north. It's not very strong, so it's going to be from the west, which is going to be the best for southern New England. And then tomorrow you see the blue lines, the 540 line, the 534 line. Any showers that occur above 4,000 feet tomorrow are going to be snow showers, but for the rest of us, it's just a mixture of sun and clouds with an offshore flow, and the sun comes back with, it's called low barometer cold. That's when it's colder up in the sky, warmer near the ground, and that's instability. So instability clouds each afternoon. And how much rain from this? Yesterday we showed the QPF with a 1.57 near Brockton. Well, that's not there anymore, is it? Now, someone may end up with a 1.5 because we have such heavy rain right now, but now the QPF shows that the heaviest streaks are just missing, and Brockton gets less than a half inch. And then if you put the cursor over the water just south of Martha's Vineyard, now you're looking at more than an inch. So it's really hit or miss on who gets the inch of rain today. As you can see by the color of my grass, I've had an adequate amount of rain. And they weren't with cold fronts, they were waves of energy moving off to the south as warm fronts for the most part. So let's go forward now with the Euro and get us done with this thing, Tim. There's the cyclogenesis happening over New England. The low goes to our north, and there's not a lot of isobars, so not a lot of wind, instability showers. There's Michael, not Michael, it's Milton in the Gulf of Mexico, and it shows the pressure in the 970s coming ashore. So there's going to be fluctuation with Milton's intensity. It's probably going to start to diminish in intensity as it gets bigger in scope, though, and goes across Florida, and it's going to be a high impact, so sad situation happening in Florida. And at the same time, that system goes off the east coast of Florida, leaving floods and storm surge and wind damage and probably severe weather as it goes cold core and weakens over the Bahamas. Here in the northeast, it gets more windy here with the low to our north and high pressure to our southwest. That's a west wind, so it's not that bad in southern New England, but it's going to get quite gusty on Thursday into Friday. Here comes another cold front out of Canada. So all of a sudden now over the weekend, we're going to have high pressure coming back in from eastern Canada. It's going to turn much cooler over the weekend with some elevation instability, showers of rain and or snow. Look at the 540 line coming south. Now I'm going to stop it. Oh my goodness, you kidding me? We've been stopping it on next Monday, a week from today, several times over the last few out the door weather and moors. And this shows a 997 low near Nantucket for next Monday, with actually cold enough for snow in the higher elevations with that 540 line and the 534 line, those blue lines, thickness. Cold air is not as thick as warm air because it's more dense, and that's how we judge whether it's cold enough for rain or snow. This is almost certainly not going to happen. 2 days ago, we had a 990 low up over north of Caribou, Maine. Yesterday, it was kind of just a wave on a front, about 1,012 near New York City, and now it's a 997 low near Cape Cod. Add them all up and divide by 3, and this has been working out for us over the last several months with these long-range forecasts. And what I say is it's going to be colder, colder on especially Columbus Day and much of next weekend, with a chance of showers of rain at the lower elevations and snow in the higher elevations. So hopefully we're going to start seeing some of those snowleage images coming out of northern Vermont and northern New Hampshire. Yesterday, Josh Worth, I was out here working on the garden. Josh Worth sent me this this quick video saying, all right, the leaves are mostly falling off the trees in the mountains. Next stop, Pow. You're right, Josh. Next stop, Pow. After today's front, it's going to be a very busy weather week, watching Milton over the Gulf and whether we get snow in our mountains. Top of Mount Washington this morning is in the mid-30s with the lower part of the mountain in the mid-40s. So we have right side up weather again. That inversion and days of high pressure to our north are done for at least a few days. And I'm done. I'll let my in more from yesterday kind of speak for itself. Patriots game disappointing, but sunset just astounding spectacle, and the condensation trails in the sky were something else. And also Marlo Garnsworthy inspired me while I was making my time lapse to do a little beach cleanup. All right, Steve, say goodbye. Say we'll see you in 24 hours.
Talk to you tomorrow. Yeah, that's what we picked up in about 10 minutes. Need a bigger bucket. Oh yeah, and the rainfall so far,
0.05.
I'm gonna empty it out and start again. A little chilly here, standing in the shade, but if I walk out to the sun, look at the cumulus clouds have really evaporated. So the high pressure has returned to its job of sinking air and blue sky and blue water, and warm enough that Steve is now resting in the shade. Hi, Steve.
Patriots are kicking off here in 2 seconds. You want to come in and watch or listen to the game on the radio?
I like to come outside and actually work in the yard
Or play on the water and listen on the radio. I like Zolak's call. And it's still breezy from the north-northeast, but the sun makes it feel a lot better.
1 p.m. Feels like about maybe 63 degrees. It's actually only 61 degrees. That clock's a little wrong. The last best tomato of the season right there. The rest of the way it's cherry. But it's going to a good cause. Bagel and cream cheese. And how's your day going? He doesn't care to score at a Patriots game. He just wants to go out. And it's funny, my Accurite is saying thunderstorms are due. I haven't looked at the radar, but I think there are thunderstorms in New York. Let's check the radar.
Way out there over New York, there are probably some storms.
Beep, beep. Hello. Hello. Just looked at the radar.
Storms near Toronto, north of Buffalo. Nothing severe on the map. So, very interesting front coming into New England as I lose the sun further and further south every day. A couple of condensation trails there.
Well, that was a total tease. We thought there was a touchdown. You ruled it incomplete. Does that even make sense when his feet allegedly went out of bounds? Nearest thunderstorm is near Buffalo. Check the radar, 60 degrees, 420. The Patriots kept it interesting right up to the last play. Ran out of time. 2 great complete passes, but too many mistakes before that. Too many mistakes. All right, let's do a little polling of the Virginia Creeper. Thank you, commentator on my YouTube page, for the tip on the Virginia Creeper.
It's like, why is it called Virginia Creeper if it's in Massachusetts? Just like the Carolina Wren, which I hear all the time. Why is it called the Carolina Wren when it's in Massachusetts? There are the birds. You know where the birds really are? Right on the other side of this bush. Let's see if we can catch them off guard. They're in there.
Steve knows they're in there. There they go. It's a playground for birds around here. The sun did come out and illuminate
The garden a little bit there in the last hour.
Steve and I have been doing a little pruning. T-Rex went back inside. You can't really tell, but I actually took off a bunch of decayed tomato branches to make these look more pretty, and they look prettiest with this low light. Took out a couple of cages where the tomatoes didn't really grow too well. The big boys didn't do well at all. Steve's a grazer. Hot peppers did really well.
I don't know what good they are. Put a little bit of one in a soup, and the soup got so spicy.
Capsaicin is the compound in there. If you need to clean out your
Sinus,
got a clogged nose or something like that,
capsaicin, the hot
chemical, and those peppers will do it. Put a tiny bit of that in your soup. And all the basil's going to seed. Got dill, second round of dill, which is also going to seed. Some salad here with the basil, and the celery is doing pretty good. And there's celery and lettuce that just grew by itself like that. And some of these much more tolerable peppers here, kind of sweet peppers. A ton of those under there. And cherry tomatoes are still coming. This vine would have been about 8 foot long if I didn't run it along the ground, because it was intermingled with some pumpkins. That would have been huge. I was thinking maybe I'd drive over there to watch the sun set and see if I could see the moon and Venus, but instead I went for a walk down to the shore right below the house. And the wind is kind of stiff at my back from the east, northeast still, which is rather extraordinary considering there's a front coming in from the west. Almost all the time when there's a front coming in from the west, the air comes from the south and southwest. So time lapse adjacent to Lynx, where the moon and Venus should appear above Lynx.
beautiful.
Extraordinary. And those vivid lines are condensation trails from the jet planes, along with moisture available and instability aloft. And my bearing on the moon was slightly off. It's above the Lynx, but much more to the south than I anticipated. It's over 103 regatta. So there's the moon. Venus is just to the upper right of the moon, behind that cirrus cloud. So we'll leave that to people like Rob Wright and the professional photographers capturing the moon and Venus. It's a passion, doing what we do. If you have a passion, pursue it. The fishermen will be happy to know that there's some bait right down there. That was there a second ago. And the planes are taking off toward the east and then turning south. Yeah, Tim, you've said that a couple thousand times already, you know. I know. Can't stop. Won't stop. But done for now, anyway. Somebody stop me.
This is so cool.
Here you go, conspiracy theorists.
It's just a cloud.
Never know what you're gonna see on X. How about the moon? I think that's the moon. I think this is planet Earth.
And I think Venus is right about at that elbow.
I'll leave Venus to the professionals. Good night, everybody. Extraordinary night, everybody.